The Great Commission is the great delegation. You know, if we're going to scale to support the harvest of souls needed in our time, we're going to have to learn how to work with others. Now, you may just always feel called to evangelize in your daily life because your primary mission field is your life. But as you get involved with evangelization, you may feel called to go beyond just the influence you have in your daily life. You may want to get involved with a ministry, and you may even feel called to start a ministry in your extended sphere of influence. And there's so much we can say on this topic, and I'll probably have follow-on courses in the future. But just some quick thoughts about how to scale the Great Commission from your context. And the way that you're going to scale it is by working with others and working through others. That's why the Great Commission could be called the Great Delegation. So I just want to go quickly through 7 points for your consideration. Number 1, have a vision and a strategy. You want to be able to have a bit of an idea of what success will look like and how you're going to get there. For myself, when I first did this, I had gone to a charismatic prayer meeting, and I was really hoping I could invite my friends so that they too could get evangelized or re-evangelized. But I knew that it was just something that the people I knew and my friends, for the most part, the charismatic prayer meeting was too intense. But I knew they'd be open to a presentation of the gospel. So I knew that I could invite them to something where the gospel was presented, but maybe something that wouldn't already be, an even bigger culture shock, because even kind of coming to a meeting outside of Mass led by a layperson was going to be enough of a change. And so my vision was I wanted to evangelize my peers. I felt that maybe I could have some influence on people in a similar state in life. That was my vision, to evangelize people of a comparable age. And my strategy was to use kind of a very low-key prayer meeting. And if I could add a social element, like if I could get a good balance of guys and gals, that there'd be kind of a secondary way to engage, or like a secondary motivation. People would also, have a chance to meet other people. But the priority was definitely the gospel, and the social part was second. So that was my vision and strategy for that particular ministry. The second point is to have a team to work with. Find 1 or 2 or 3 others to implement this vision and strategy with you. Have people that you trust, people that are ready to buy in into your vision and into your strategy, and will have the gifts that are needed to kind of implement this ministry, or at least have the gifts to help recruit those people that you need. And you want to be able to, as you kind of move forward, you want to be able to work with people that you can both think through the implementation of your evangelistic ministry and pray through. You want people that can both think and pray, have a sense of being able to hear from God. Sort of the third principle is slow is fast. So when you're building out a ministry, it's important to build carefully. Sometimes when we're starting something, we kind of want to open up the ministry to everyone, and make it widely available and invite everyone. And sometimes that isn't always the best strategy. So when I did my young adults group, I set up, I was careful about who I invited. I had kind of an age an age criteria. And I was also careful with those who I invited initially because I wanted to, have kind of a group of people that I thought, might be able to kind of help me get something started, and then eventually draw in other people. And the same goes for the leaders that you pick. Number 4, have a leadership criteria and stick with that criteria. So in the ministry I'm in right now, Catholic Christian Outreach, we have a criteria called FACT, that people need to be faithful, trying to live out the Catholic life. They need to be available, need to be able to have the time to help out with the ministry and be reliable. They need to be contagious, that somehow their own faith life and how they live it out is going to be attractive to others. And then finally, they need to be teachable. So we would recommend a criteria comparable to that, and maybe there's a couple of the things that you would add based on the vision and the strategy that you have. Number 5, small is big. Again, there can be a temptation to try and really have kind of a big splash, and I would definitely recommend starting small. Especially if it's an evangelization where there's a discipling component. You want to be able to make sure that you can properly disciple the people that the Lord sends, the people that the Lord recruits through you, because it's better to focus on quality than quantity. Because generally speaking, if you're going to go with a delegation model, chances are you are going to try and delegate the ministry that you're doing to a group of people who then very likely in turn are going to delegate to others. If you can get to that, then you can really live a principle of not just delegation, but multiplication, so that from day one, you're building in a sustainability in the ministry. Well, it's difficult to do that if you're trying to do large scale. But if you start off small and you build into a small set of leaders who are able to in turn build in another small set of leaders, and in turn do the same, then eventually you'll have the principle of multiplication. Not unlike kind of the principle of compounding interest when you're talking about money. Number 6, communicate. Learn how to communicate and to be clear. This starts first with when you're recruiting people and being able to communicate what the vision is and what the strategy is. That'll be so important for recruiting leaders. But then there's also kind of a communication to those who you're trying to have be part of the ministry. So I remember when I was starting this young adults group, I was really careful to kind of communicate kind of a language that was going to be understood by those people that we were trying to recruit. So I would say things like, hey, I'm starting this group, so it's a chance to kind of grow in faith and potentially meet others who are trying to do the same. Number 7, learn how to teach and learn how to coach. It'll be important for you to learn how to teach people. Teaching is just part of the evangelization ministry. It doesn't mean that you necessarily need to be the teacher. You can have other people do the teaching. But you'll also need to learn how to coach. When you're raising up leaders, it's not just sage on stage teaching. What I've found is that there's an element of coaching, because you can teach people, but then they need to learn how to integrate this into their lives. So for example, we even saw in the ministry of Jesus where Jesus taught the disciples, but fairly early on, he picked 72 people that he then sent out. And then when they came back from their mission, he then coached them. He knew that there'd be only certain things that they would learn when they'd go on mission. And when they came back from mission, then that became a teaching moment. And so it's important to learn how to teach and to learn how to coach when you're working in an evangelization ministry.